Awesome. Thank you. We will be posting this recording on our website, as well as putting together the slide deck will also be there, the Q&A portions that we go over later, and so that will be available for you, as well as some other resources that we're going to be talking about today. So joining us from Campus Human Resources, we have Kathleen Sharoma, who's the Manager of Staff Personnel Policy, and Kennedy Thomas, who is the UCPath Business Operations Manager. From the Academic Personnel Office, we have Yadira Marquez, and I see her hand is up. Yadira, did you want to say something real quick?
No, sorry, I think I accidentally did that. Apologies.
Okay, no problem. Just
hi, guys. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, Yadira. Also from Health Human Resources, HHR, we have Ariel Kaluag, who is the Manager for Workers' Compensation, Leave of Absence, and Disability Management, as well as Anya Tisarchik, who is the Principal Leave Analyst and Auditor. And then from crew, you have myself. Again, if you're joining us a little late, my name is Laura Baker. I'm the Training Coordinator with UCLA Central Resource Unit. And I also have with me today Ziamara Noble, who is a Principal Analyst, and she knows everything I-181 file, which we're going to talk about in the session today. So as I mentioned, we have disabled the chat feature, and we're asking for you to submit your questions using Slido. So what you can do is from your phone, you can scan this QR code and it will open up the question platform in your browser on your phone, or you can go to slido.com in your browser and type in our code for this session, which is 904980. And also a fun feature of using Slido is that if you see someone's question and you think, oh, I also have the same question, you can use the thumbs up feature, and that will tell us that that question is very important to you. You want us to answer it. So be sure to use that thumbs up upvote feature, so that way we can get to the most pressing of your questions. I'm going to go ahead and move on. If you didn't get an opportunity to scan the QR code or go to the website, my moderators here, Jillian and Taylor, will add that into the chat for you in case you missed it. So let's just dive right in because we've got a lot to talk about today. So first, we're going to be talking about what PFCB is. So we're going to just give you a very high-level overview, like the highlights reel of the PFCB program. And then we'll also talk about who is eligible. Again, giving you a high-level overview of employee eligibility, and also explain where you can find the respective policy information. I do just want to mention also that there is a lot of resources that have already been published that come directly from UCOP as well as the UCPath Center. So really today what we're going to be pointing you to is what resources are available for all of your more specific questions. Then we're going to demonstrate how these the leave option is entered into UCPath. And we're going to talk a little bit about the difference between entering for salaried employees versus entering for hourly employees. And then we'll finish with talking about how time is reported specifically for hourly employees, and also, again, FMLA and CIFRA usage. So we're just going to dive right in here. So what is PFCB? So PFCB is an income replacement option. It is not a specific type of leave. So essentially, eligible UC employees can elect to receive income replacement for PFCB, calculated at 70% of their eligible earnings for up to 8 weeks per calendar year. And those eligible earnings include an employee's base salary, which is payable through the university. And PFCB is also considered taxable wages. So if PFCB is not a leave type, what is it exactly? So PFCB, as I said, is a pay option that is available for family and medical leave, or FML, that's taken for the purpose of caring for a family member with a serious health condition, bonding with a new child, military caregiver leave, and qualifying exigency leave. And this new program became effective on July 1st, 2021. So who is eligible for PFCB? So employees do have to meet following requirements in order to be eligible for PFCB. So the first is they just have to qualify for FML. So they're eligible for FML under either FMLA or CIFRA if they have at least 12 months of cumulative university service and they've worked at least 1,250 hours during the 12-month period that's immediately before the start of the leave. And next, they have to be on a qualifying leave. So as I mentioned before, PFCB can be an option for employees that are taking FML for one of the following reasons. Either to care for a family member with a serious health condition, which is covered under FMLA and or CIFRA, for parental bonding leave, also known as baby bonding leave, again, covered under FMLA or CIFRA, for military caregiver leave, which is associated with FMLA, or for qualifying exigency leave, which is covered under FMLA and CIFRA. So it's important to note that PFCB is not an option if the employee is taking FML for their own serious health condition or if they are covered under pregnancy disability. So if you're unsure whether or not your employee is eligible, we recommend that you refer to the applicable policy documentation. So for policy covered staff, the PPSM, for academics, the academic personnel manual, and then if your employee is represented, the applicable collective bargaining agreement. Or you can also contact the appropriate central office for questions related to whether or not your employee is eligible for this program. And just kind of going off of collective bargaining agreement, we do have a chart here. As I said, the slide deck will be posted on our website. So you don't have to try and screenshot this or anything. It's also on the UCNet website. But so this table just gives you an idea of which of the collective bargaining agreements at UCLA have signed a side letter, meaning that they are participating in this PFCB program. So you can refer to the specific collective bargaining agreement to review that side letter, or you can contact the appropriate employee or labor relations representative if you have questions regarding an employee who is in a specific collective bargaining unit. So now we're going to just do the PFCB highlight reel. So what we've done is in our collective groups, UCLA crew and our central offices, we have kind of put together the highlight reel of the training that UCOP has presented, as well as the training that UCPath Center has presented, and kind of boiled down the key things that we want you to remember about when you're processing PFCB. So the first is that if you have an employee who's on a qualifying FML that's in progress as of July 1st, they can utilize PFCB from July 1st going forward. So for example, if you have someone who's on baby bonding leave and they started their baby bonding leave in June and it's going until August, they can use PFCB starting July 1st for the remainder of their leave. So that's the first point. Next is that the qualifying FML must be taken in a block of at a minimum 1 work week or more. Next is that employees cannot combine PFCB with accrued leave or any other available pay options in order to receive more than 70% of their salary. So they're only eligible to receive the 70% of their earnings using this option. Next, if an employee elects to use PFCB, they must continue to use that PFCB option until they either exhaust their full 8 work weeks of PFCB or the qualifying block leave ends. So essentially, they can't go back and forth from being on PFCB to using vacation or sick and then using PFCB. Once they've started using PFCB, they need to use it for the remainder of that leave. Again, either until the 8 weeks has been exhausted or their leave ends. And with that said, if they have any PFCB left over, for example, let's say they only used 6 weeks of PFCB, they have until the end of the calendar year to use the other 2 weeks on another qualifying FML block leave. So again, those are kind of the highlight reel of some of the important aspects of PFCB. I'm going to go over some resources in just a moment, but I do want to mention that the UCPath Center has published a job aid, and they have multiple scenarios that explain that idea of how people can use PFCB, in different types of scenarios. So I would really recommend that you review that job aid to kind of get a better sense of how this option can be used in a variety of scenarios. So as I mentioned, there are multiple resources that are available that will hopefully help answer some of your more specific questions. So the first is there is a PFCB resource center on UCNet. So UCOP has published this webpage, and it has resources including a previously recorded webinar. So they put together a webinar back in May and really kind of dove into all of the policy specific information. So we do have a link to that webinar. I know they're working on getting it on this specific webpage, but you can access it through the Central Resource Unit website. We do have a link posted there. They also put together an FAQ document from that webinar session. So that is available on this webpage. And they also, again, have a link to a table that has all of the collective bargaining agreements in which have decided to opt in to use this program. That's your first resource. The next one is the UCPath job aid that I mentioned just a few minutes ago. So on the UCPath Help site, the UCPath Center published a job aid, and it has some more additional policy related resources. So you can leverage that. Also, we recommend that you refer to the policy documentation. So for policy covered staff, refer to UC's absence from work policy for PPSM staff, which is the PPSM 2.210. Also, the leave of absence section of the academic personnel manual for academic employees. And then again, if you have a policy covered employee, if you have a collective bargaining unit employee, refer to their specific collective bargaining agreement. And the last resource, obviously, is to reach out to your UCLA central office if you have additional questions and you need more guidance. So for CHR, depending on your employee's classification, either reaching out to employee relations or your staff personnel policy person. And for HHR, refer to the UCLA Health Central HR Leaves of Absence. So we're going to talk a little bit about the extended absence request in UCPath. I do want to point out some of the key fields that are on this page that will help you when you are transacting these in UCPath. And then once we talk about this, I'm going to hand it over to Kennedy, and he's going to actually do a live demo in the system so you can see what that looks like. So the first thing I want to point out is this FMLA CFRA eligibility box. So you can use this section to help you in determining if your employee meets those FML requirements of the service months and the eligible hours that they've worked. So you can see here, we have the check mark for they're eligible for FMLA and they're eligible for CFRA. Those little check marks are here. The service months you see here is 54, so they've met that 12-month threshold. And then the eligibility hours they've worked is 1,822, which meets the 1,250-hour minimum requirement. So that's the first box that I wanted to point out to you. Next is you want to make sure you're choosing the appropriate qualifying leave code in order to use a PFCB option. So you can see here, the leave type is parental bonding. And then in this FMLA, CFRA, PDLL leave dropdown menu, the option here is parental bonding, FMLA, CFRA, PFCB. So when you're selecting your leave type from this section here, you want to make sure that you are selecting one that has that PFCB and it's at the end of the code. It's not at the beginning. So just make sure that you're picking the right one. And then the FMLA, CFRA, PDLL adjustment hours field for salaried monthly employees, you'll want to make sure that you enter the total hours that are being used in order to decrement their FMLA or CFRA hours. And then just the last thing to mention is the way that the leave is processed. So as you'll recall, we mentioned that it is a 70% of salary that they're being paid. So 70% will be using the appropriate earn code for PFCB, which we'll talk about in a moment. And then the other 30% will be classified as leave no pay. Now, the UCPath Center has said that they are taking on the responsibility of entering the job earnings distribution with those earn codes after the leave has been locally approved. So the good news for you all is that you don't have to do that. You don't have to enter the job earning distribution. Typically, if you did, it would be on this job earning distribution additional earning code tab, but they are going to take care of that. So all that you will need to do is, again, ensure that you're selecting the correct leave code and the leave type, entering your notes, and then UCPath Center will take care of the job earning distribution, which is how your monthly exempt employees will be paid. They'll be paid from the job earning distribution or the JED. And then your hourly employees are going to report time. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Kennedy, and he's going to demo how to enter this leave in UCPath. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing. And Kennedy, it's all yours.
All right. Can you see UCPath?
Yes.
Okay. So the path to get to where you want to enter your leave of absence or request your extended absence is you want to click on PeopleSoft menu, then go to Global Payroll and Absence Management, Payee Data, Maintain Absences, UC Customizations, and then Request Extended Absence. So at this point, you should have already reached out to your leave administrator or your central HR person and determine what type of leave you want us to enter the person on. And so for this example, for the start date, we're going to have them start their leave as of 7/1 when the program first got implemented, and then we're going to say that they're going to take it for 2 weeks. So we're going to have their expected return to be 7/15. And then for the leave type, we're going to say they're out for a family illness, injury. And then for the leave type, we're going to enter family care, FMLA, CIFRA, and PFCB. Again, you want to make sure that you're reaching out to your leave administrator to see what options are available to them if they still have balances in both FMLA and CIFRA. And then you always want to make sure that you enter it as a paid block. So that way they can receive the payment while they're on PFCB. And then for the last day work, you just want to enter when they were last in the office or virtually working, I should say. And then in here for the monthly, you want to make sure that you calculate what the hours are for the days that they'll be on this leave. For a full-time person, of course, it'll be 8 hours per day. But if you have a person that is not full-time, like 75%, you want to make sure that you prorate those hours per day to get the total of the adjustment hours. So since this person in this example is full-time, we'll say this is 80 hours for 2 weeks. And then you want to make sure that you enter a note just so that it will be approved. Remember, extended absences must have notes or they won't go through. And then you hit submit and it'll go through for approvals, and then UCPath will go in and update that employee's information. So once the leave is entered on job data, they'll also go in and change that employee's job earnings distributions for both monthly and biweekly for tracking purposes. But that's one of the things that you want to make sure that you go and double check, make sure that UCPath does enter the job earnings distributions, because there have been instances already where it might not have necessarily been entered because it's a manual process that UCPath has to do to enter these changes. So in order to validate that the changes are there, you want to go to that employee's job data, which is PeopleSoft menu, Workforce Administration, Job Information, Job Data. And then once the change is there, their most recent row, their 7-1 row, will show that they're on the pay leave for PFCB. And then down here, where you see the earnings distributions tab, when you click that, it'll show you the PFCB earn code at 70%, and then it'll show leave no pay at 30%. And then if that's there for monthly, they'll get paid correctly. And again, you'll have to submit hours for biweekly so that their pay is correct. And that's it.
Thanks, Kennedy. Just want to remind everyone, if you have more specific questions, go ahead and add them into the Slido, and we will get to those probably in the next 20 minutes or so. So now we're going to talk a little bit about some key information that you need to keep in mind for payroll processing. Let me go ahead and share my screen again real quick. Okay, so like Kennedy said, when you're looking at the employee's earnings distribution, you should see two different earn codes, the one for the PFCB and then the one for leave no pay. So the earn codes for PFCB are PFL for salaried employees and PFN for hourly. And those were created to support funding, tracking, and reporting of PFCB usage. So these earn codes, this is just kind of like an FYI. They're linked to the flag Y for FMLA. They're also configured for flag B and D, which are linked to either FMLA or CIFRA, but those specific flags are not used for TRS or Kronos at UCLA, so you're likely going to only be using the Y flag if you're needing to enter hours manually. So for salaried employees, as we said before, your FMLA adjusted hours, if you don't enter them on the extended absence request, so that field that we had talked about that Kennedy showed, that 80 hours that you want to make sure that you add so that their FMLA is decremented. If you on accident leave it blank, you would need to use manage accruals, the manage accruals page in UCPath, in order to decrement that employee's FMLA hours. We do not recommend that you submit I-181 files for salaried employees, because what would end up happening is you likely will overpay them. So whenever possible, do not submit for that. Use manage accruals if you forget to put their adjusted FMLA hours on the absence request. And then lastly, for hourly employees who use TRS, and we're just talking about TRS here because the crew is the administrator for TRS. If you have hourly employees on different time and attendance systems, you'll want to make sure that you reach out to your time and attendance administrator to find out how those hours need to be reported. But for TRS, for the time being, you need to report the hourly employees' time manually using the I-181 file until TRS is properly configured. Right now, it's not set up to process these hours. So again, if you are on another time and attendance system, make sure you contact your system administrator for instructions. So I'm going to go ahead and hand this over to Ziamara. She, again, is our principal analyst at the crew, and she's the one who actually handles your I-181 files. And she's going to talk a little bit about some key things to keep in mind, and then she'll also demonstrate how to access the file, complete it, and submit it to crew. So Ziamara, take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. Good afternoon. I'm Xiomara Noble, and I will demonstrate how to create and submit a manual I-181. So this is just a snapshot of the I-181, and we will be submitting this for hourly employees. As Laura mentioned, the monthly employees or salary employees, we are not allowed to submit an I-181. We are going to submit 2 lines for each day for the employee. One which will represent the 70%, which is the PFN, and the other one is the LPN, which is represents the 30%. So as I said, the earn codes for this program are PFN and LPN, and it's very important to note that you, if the file does not have the FMLA flag, the transactions will be rejected. Right now I'm going to take you to the I-181 and I will show you how to submit it. So I will share my screen. So first we will go to the crew website. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
All right. So here we're going to enter I-181. And I'm gonna click on the must pay files. And then how to find mass template files. And for this, so we're gonna click on the I-181 blank template. And I'm going to download it. So, so it's taking a little bit. Okay, here we go. We have on the template, we have instructions on the first tab on how to fill out the form. So you don't have to take any notes. Everything is in here step by step on how to fill it out. But I'm just would like to demonstrate to you so it makes a little bit of sense. So remember that we said we're going to submit 2 lines for each day. So for this example, we're going to pretend that this employee is at 100%. Okay, so we are going to, and the employee took advantage of the program and when on July 1st, so we're going to report from July 1st to July 8th. Okay, so first of all, we will enter the either LA camp or Payroll editing. You can either enter LA camp or LA Med. The employee ID number. You will have already this information. You will need the employee record. You will be employee record 0. You will enter the position number as well. For the pay period end date, you will enter the pay period end date for the pay period that you are processing transactions for. So in this case, we are going to enter July 24th, which is the next available pay period ending. Please don't forget that on the I-181, you cannot add slashes or dashes. If you do that, I will reject the file because if you submit it like that to UCPath, it will reject. All right. So, as I mentioned, we're going to use 12. We're going to create 12 lines. Okay. So for the earnings begin date and the earnings end date, we are going to report the hours that the employee took under the PFCB program. So for right now, I'm going to create 12 lines. I'm going to bring it down because this information is not going to change. All right. So to make it easier, we are going to enter the PFN hours first, the lines, and then the LPN. So the employee, as we mentioned, went on this type of leave as of July 1st. So you're gonna enter the earnings begin date and the earnings end date the same date. So it will be the 7th, 2021, and I believe we had a holiday in here. So it's gonna be July 1st, the 2nd, the holiday, July 6, 7, and 8. This employee went on leave from July 1st to July 8th. Okay, so you're going to copy these dates again at the bottom, which is going to be the LPN dates. And then you can copy all of these dates to the next column. All right, and then we're going to enter for the first set, we're going to enter the PFN code. So that's going to be for the 6 lines. And then LPN, which as we said before, that's going, the PFN represents 70% of the employees' pay, and the LPN is the 30%. For the other hours column, as you guys know, here at UCLA, we calculate hours to the nearest quarter of an hour. For this program, however, we need to calculate to 2 decimals. Okay, so for an employee that reports 8 hours a day, that would be 70% of 8 hours, which will be 5.60. Okay, so for these lines, for the PFN lines, we're going to report the 5.60, and for the remaining, it's going to be the 2.40. Okay, so this is the way that you complete the I-181, and then please don't forget that to add the flag, the FMLA flag. As some of you know, I'm the one responsible for uploading these files to UCPath. So I will be getting them when you submit them via Crew. And if I have any questions or if I have any issues with the files, I will be communicating with you. So after we're done with this, we will go ahead and you will have to save the file. You will be saved as using the naming convention, which will be the I-181. File, pay period 07/24/2021, and it will be sorry. Okay. So we're gonna save this file. All right. And then we're gonna go and I'm going to show you how to upload or attach this file to a case. So we're gonna go back to the Crew site, and I'm going to open a case with the Crew by clicking on the open a case, and then open a case with Crew. We are going to use the HR admin service request option. Okay, for the topic, it's very important that you select the mass pay file option. Otherwise, we may miss it and we may not be able to process it. For the employment type, you can select staff. For the employee ID, you can either enter your employee ID or you can enter one of the employees that you included in the file. For the subject, you will enter the I-181 file, paper ending July 24, 2021. That helps me, and you can either enter PFCB hours. And the description, you can also enter, for hours for Mr. Okay, and then you will go ahead and click to provide the attachment. You choose file, which is the one that we just created. And open, and it will be attached. And then you can just go ahead and submit. Like I said earlier, I will get these files and I will process them. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to me. So I will just go ahead and submit it. So that is how to create and submit an I-181. Thank you. Laura.
Thanks, Leo.
Yes.
All right. So I do have just one last slide to show you all. Give me just a sec. And then we'll start in on the questions. Okay. So just like the policy side has a bunch of resources, there are also resources for your UCPath entry. The first is the UCPath job aid. So the one that I showed you before for policy also has how to enter that leave information into UCPath on the extended absence page. And it also talks about how to complete the I-181 file. So that job aid will be a really good resource for you. Also, the UCPath Center did a training session where they went through their job aid in more detail. So you can review that webinar as well. That link is posted on our crew website. We have our own PFCB resource page, so that is available for you as well. And then of course, you can also create a case with crew. Right now, we are working on adding a PFCB processing topic to our intake form. So as soon as that's available, we will communicate that out, that you will be able to do that. And then we will field your question to the appropriate party. But we'll also be able to help you with those more specific questions on how to submit the I-181 file, and also be able to point you to resources regarding the extended absence request. Also, as part of this webinar, you will have access to a quick reference guide that we've put together for you, which you'll see an example of here on the right. So this document has all of those resources that we've talked about today with links so that you can just access everything from one central resource, and you won't have to try and remember where everything is. So we'll be sending that to you after the webinar is concluded. So that is all of the information that we were going to present. So let me go ahead and bring up the Slido. And again, if you didn't have an opportunity to submit a question, you can scan this QR code and submit your question now, or you can go to slido.com and enter this, this code here and start entering your question. I see we have quite a few people who use that thumbs up feature. So if you see a question here that's on this list and you want to make sure that we get to it, make sure that you click that thumbs up so we know that one is an important one to answer. We have plenty of time, so we should be able to get through most of your questions. So we'll start with this first question here. We have an employee whose son was born on 8/27/20, I'm assuming 2020. They took 2 weeks off for parental bonding leave, and they are interested in taking additional leave. Do they qualify for PFCB? I'm not sure what type of employee this is, but I'm thinking maybe Kathleen Shiroma, you might be able to answer this one.
I'm sorry, Laura, can you tell me which question?
Yes, this first one here. We have an employee that their son was born on 8/27/2020. They had already taken 2 weeks of parental bonding leave, and they're interested in taking additional leave. Do they qualify for PFCB?
So parental bonding leave must be taken within a year of the birth. So yes, the employee would qualify. If the employee qualifies for additional parental bonding leave, the employee could receive PFCB, but all of the leave must be taken before August 27, 2021.
Perfect. Thanks, Kathleen. I'll go ahead and mark that one answered. The next question is, understand that they need to exhaust 8 weeks of PFCB for each leave qualifying event. However, how would this work for someone who wants to use it intermittently? Kathleen, you might be able to answer that one too.
So PFCB needs to be used as a block leave or until the need for PFCB is exhausted. So if somebody wants to take, intermittent leave for let's say to bond with a child 1 day a week, they wouldn't be able to apply for PFCB. So it has to be a block leave or up until the need for PFCB ends.
Perfect. Thank you. Go ahead and mark that one answered. Okay, this next question is, if using both pregnancy disability leave and parental bonding leave, do they need to be entered as 2 blocks of leave? This one might be be a Kennedy. Yeah. Okay. Hey, Kennedy.
I'm here.
So this question was, if someone's using both pregnancy disability leave and parental bonding leave, does it need to be entered as 2 blocks of leave?
Yeah, it will have to be entered separately.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, from what I remember, PFCB is not eligible for pregnancy disability leave. And regardless, if whether or not someone's using PFCB, when someone goes from pregnancy disability to parental bonding, it's always entered as a new leave type, correct?
Correct.
Right. So yes, it would need to be entered as 2 separate leaves. And then when you're selecting the parental bonding leave type, you'll want to make sure that you select the one that has PFCB within the FMLA, CFRA, PDLL option drop-down menu. So awesome. I'll go ahead and mark that one answered. Okay, let's see. This next question is, if you've given birth this year and have taken FML, do you qualify for PFCB still?
So if it depends on whether the person has exhausted all of their leave entitlements. So if someone gave birth but hasn't taken CFRA, so baby parental bonding under CFRA, they could receive PFCB while they're under CFRA. So in order to receive PFCB, an employee has to qualify for some type of family medical leave, whether it's pregnancy disability leave. Whether it's care for a family member who's ill or parental bonding. If they qualify for either CFRA or FEMLA for either of those 2 reasons, not for their own pregnancy, not for their own disability, then they could apply for PFCB. So it's going to depend on whether the employee still has either FEMLA or CFRA remaining.
Perfect. Okay. I'll go ahead and mark that one. And then I think this next one might tie into that a little bit. It's about asking, can an employee exhaust sick time for FMLA and then use PFCB?
So yes, I believe they can. And I think this is one of the questions on the FAQs for PFCB. An employee, if an employee exhausts, their sick time, they could apply for PFCB, or vice versa. They could apply for PFCB and then take sick leave later on.
Yes, I think I remember. So in the UCPath job aid, I was talking about the different scenarios and things that they've outlined, and I believe one of them was talking about the different ways people can use their sick or vacation time, but they would need to do it first and then use the PFCB. So if someone wants to use their sick or vacation time, they can, but they want, instead of using all 8 weeks of the PFCB, maybe they only want to use 6 weeks of PFCB, and then the other 2 weeks they use their sick or vacation time. So it just would have to make sure that whatever sick or vacation they're using has to be used first. I'll go ahead and mark that one. The next question is asking to clarify what FMLA and CFRA are, and I'll hand that one off to you.
So FEMLA is the family medical leave. So that's the federal the federal law, and then CFRA, which is a similar law, it's the California law, California Family Rights Act. One of the things that's a little bit confusing is that when at UC, the term family medical leave, or FEMLA, FML, is used collectively to describe FMLA, CFRA, and PDL, pregnancy disability leave. But just so you're clear, FMLA is the Family Medical Leave Act, which is a federal act, and CFRA is a California act.
Perfect. We'll mark that one. The next question is, do we use the FMLA forms, or do we have revised FMLA forms that indicate PFCB?
So I believe UCOP just issued updated FEML forms. They're on the PFCB page as well, or you can access them through the PFCB page, but the FEML forms have been updated to incorporate PFCB.
Perfect. I know that I meant to have it up already, but let me just show you all the resource page that we have on our CREW website. So this is the UCLA Central Resource Unit CREW website. So in the search, if you type in PFCB, it will come up with this article here. And we basically have all of the resources hyperlinked here, basically everything that we've collected so far. So that resource page that Kathleen is talking about is this one here, the PFCB resource page from UCNet. And I'm thinking that did you say that the FMLA form was here somewhere?
I thought it was linked. It may not be linked. It may be on the FEMLA page, but the FEMLA page does have updated forms.
Okay, we'll make sure that when we go through and publish the questions and answers from the session today, we'll provide a link for those updated forms. So we'll go ahead and mark that one as answered. The next question is, how do monthly employees report the PFCB hours in TRS for timekeeping purposes? Do we submit as normal on cycle or do not process? Same question for biweekly. So I'm thinking this one's a Ziamara question.
Yes. So for right now, you will need to keep track of the hours, and once TRS is properly configured, the employees can go back and adjust their timesheets, and then the DTAs will select the do not process option. But for right now, for monthly, you don't have to submit, like we said before, an I-181, but for the biweeklies, you do in order for them to get paid. So just keep track of the hours for right now.
Perfect, thanks, Theo. Okay, the next question is, just to make sure I understand, this is not a leave program that offers income replacement for staff already on a qualifying leave type. And that is perfect, you got it. Whoever submitted this question, that's exactly correct. The next question is, how do we enter these hours in Kronos? I know she was here. Aztec, are you still on the call? She might have dropped off. We can follow up because, as I said before, our group is the administrators for TRS, so we don't have the information for the other time and attendance systems. So we will find out for you if they have any resources, and we'll provide that in the published Q&A when we get that in the next couple of weeks. So I'll keep that one as unanswered. This next question is, who is the lead administrator? Does this person have to approve the request before it is entered? I think maybe it was leave administrator. Maybe that's what the question was. So I don't know if Kathleen or Yadira, I guess like the question is like, what type of employee are you asking about? So maybe we just kind of talk a little bit about each one. So for staff, Kathleen.
So when you say lead administrator, so each department does their own FEMLA administration. The service centers do administration for their client, leave administration for their clients. But I'm not sure if this person is in a department that's serviced by the service center or not. But you could talk with your HR, your local HR representative. I mean, there's no, if an employee qualifies for FEMLA, then their FEMLA should be approved. There's no, you know, if an employee is eligible for FEMLA, you can't just say, well, I'm just going to deny it because I don't want them to take FEMLA if they have a legal entitlement to FEMLA. So, you know, feel free to chime in and ask a follow-up question. But generally, if an employee is eligible for FEMLA, they would be able to take it. The FEMLA request does need to be approved or designated by the department. So each department needs to designate the leave as FEMLA, and you need to actively, if you fail to designate the leave as FEMLA, then the FEMLA clock doesn't start until you do. So feel free to ask a follow-up question if that wasn't clear.
I'm sorry, I thought Kennedy said lead, and that's why I got confused. I thought he said lead.
Oh, leave, I think, yeah, leave.
Perfect. I'll go ahead and mark that one as answered. These next two questions are I-181 related. So Zios, this will be you. The question is, should hours still be reflected on TRS timesheets, and a manual I-181 file for biweekly be submitted for monthly employees? Should the hours be reflected on TRS timesheets?
Since the earn codes are not established yet, the employees won't be able to report any time, any hours under the PFCB program. So as I said before, keep track of the hours. For the hourly employees, you will go ahead and submit the manual I-181, and they will make adjustments later on.
Perfect. This next question is, can you explain more about LPN? So LPN is the earn code for leave no pay. So that's what it stands for. And then the follow-up is on the I-181, why do we put PFN and LPN? So I'll give that one to you, Zio.
Yes. So we will have to, it is required to enter both the PFN, which represents the 70%, and the LPN, which represents the 30%. They will reject any transactions that don't have the two codes. And the is covered by department or what program? It is covered by the PFCB program. Perfect.
All right, so we'll mark that one. The next question was, are we going to go over how to enter hours in HBS? I don't know if we've got Ariel or Anya on the line that can kind of talk about HBS.
Yeah, I can take that one. So if you're on the medical center side and using HBS, you'll just get instructions from the leave analyst on what code to put in. These codes should be programmed in soon. I believe it's just the initials PFCB. So instead of putting actual hours in, you'll just be putting those codes in PFCB. And Frank's team will help us with a 181 report on that. So it's just following the leave instructions from there, and then putting the codes we ask you to put in, and that's it.
Perfect. Thanks, Ariel.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a couple more minutes, so we'll try to get through as many of these as we can. And then if we don't get to your specific question, we will be following up with our other central office partners that are on this call with us who are helping us answer these questions right now. And when we publish the Q&A document, we'll make sure that all of the questions do have an answer. So the next question is, does PFCB have a certain time frame from the time of being qualified? Kathleen, I don't know if this one's you or
I'm not sure. I'm not sure that I understand the question. You know, there's a PFCB an employee can receive PFCB for up to to 8 weeks from the time of being qualified. So as long as an employee is eligible for some form of family medical leave, statutory family medical leave, so either under FEMLA or CIFRA, not supplemental FEMLA, because supplemental FEMLA is just a UC benefit. But as long as an employee is eligible for federal FEMLA or state CIFRA, so baby bonding or caring for a family member, they would be eligible to apply for PFCB. And baby bonding, again, must be taken within a year of birth.
Awesome. All right. The next question is PDLL covered by PFCB, or is it considered a medical leave? We've already established that PFCB is not applicable to PDLL. It is for parental leave, but not for pregnancy disability. So they would not be able to use PFCB if they are on a pregnancy disability leave. Right, Kathleen?
Correct. And employees who are on, either pregnancy disability leave or another type of disability leave can apply for short-term or long-term disability benefits through, I think it's Lincoln Financial.
Perfect. Okay. I think this one might be our last one that we're able to answer. But how many days or hours is considered a block leave?
Defined by the, I would say the Department of Labor, it would be anything constituting serious health condition, which could be more than, I would say, 4 days. Anything 4 days would be considered a block leave if not taken intermittently.
Awesome, Ariel. Thank you. Okay, so I know there were a couple more questions, but as I said, we will make sure that when we publish our Q&A document that all of those questions are answered since we are at time. I would like to thank you all for attending this webinar session today. I hope that you found it helpful and that you feel more prepared now to enter these types of transactions and you know where to find the resources that you need in case you do have additional questions. We will be sending out an email at the end of the day today, and we will give you a link to that quick reference guide that I showed you that has additional resources that you will be able to access. So on behalf of the Central Resource Unit and our other UCLA central offices, thank you so much for attending today, and I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day.